In 2026, game prices are climbing like they're trying to escape Earth's atmosphere. Meanwhile, my bank account is doing the opposite. So obviously, instead of being financially responsible, I tried to make my own game console. Because the console is going to be so underpowered compared to other hardware devs would typically make games for, I've spent the past couple of weeks working on Drift Engine, which will make game development significantly easier and be optimized just for the console. Previously, I was able to get this. Progress was pretty slow the first week. However, since then, I've been able to add much more, like collision, actual game objects, physics, and more. This is Project Drift. On day one, I worked on cleaning up the code a little bit and implementing true 2D. I wanted to make it easy to switch between 2D and 3D in the future, so I made sure to keep that in mind while I made the changes. Or maybe I didn't, because those changes broke 3D rendering entirely. But that's a future problem for future Jack, right? I also set up a way to put the window in full screen while maintaining the original aspect ratio, so games could have smaller resolutions without being tiny. Along the way, I also wanted to clean up the code for defining objects a little bit. Pause. I should probably do some explaining here before I numb your brain. So what am I even talking about right now? Well, basically, imagine this box is the engine. Inside of this box, all the code is running to put stuff on your screen, check for inputs, run the tools to make the game, and so on. When the game engine is finished, this box is going to be closed and armed with gun turrets before being locked up in a high-security vault so little Timmy can't come along and break the whole thing. This is off-limits to the developers. Because of this, we want to keep everything that the devs will touch outside of the main engine, so they're free to edit those. That's all these jars right here. They feed into the engine and will eventually be packaged up with it to create the final version of the game that will then be played on the console. However, developers don't want to have to melt their own sand to make these jars from scratch, which is where our game object class comes in. That basically just makes it so you have unlimited jars that you can grab at any time and use in your game. Don't ask where these jars are coming from.
I said to get back to work.
You haven't fed us in 2 weeks.
So after day one was finished, I hadn't really achieved much, but I was going to have a much better time implementing future features. Plus, I understood the code and C++ as a whole much better now. On day two, I made the first component of the game engine. Components are basically little things that we can put inside of the game objects to tell them how to act. For instance, the script component that I just made allows developers to give each object in the game their own code to keep things more organized. I know it seems pointless right now, but trust me, it's much better to get this out of the way sooner rather than later. Using my new script class, I was able to give some basic movement to the player's object, which was still this cat. So I gave Popcat the boot and swapped it out with Mario. He's just kind of sliding around right now, but I fixed that later, don't worry. I did give him an animation, right? Oh, scratch that. I did not fix it later. After that, I put a Goomba into the scene and created a simple collision system, along with a box collider component, which is basically just a primitive hitbox. Bottom line, Mario go bonk now, is what I wish I could say. It took way too long to get this collision working, but once it was... Apparently I did absolutely nothing on day 3. On day 4, I spent a bunch of time trying to make it so you could actually see the hitboxes when working on your game, but I couldn't get it to work, so I just scrapped it and moved on to other things. Like physics. This really wouldn't be too hard. I just needed to make a physics body component which would apply gravity to anything it's attached to, and that would... After a lot of determination, emotional damage, and several therapy sessions, I finally got collision working. The last thing that I needed to add before the end of the week was a tile map system. A tile map is basically just a canvas that you can paint your levels onto with different tiles. I wasn't going to implement an entire editor, but I did make a simple system that reads a text file and uses that to load the levels. It'll get better, okay? It was pretty difficult to get collision working with the tiles. Okay, it was really difficult. Eventually, I was able to get something working. It's really janky and unpolished, and I'm not proud of it at all, but it's functional. So, did I accomplish everything I wanted to? Yes and no. I did originally want to try and fully remake the first level of Mario 1, but I was able to implement most of the tools that I would need to do that. I definitely feel like I got a lot done this week, and one of the biggest things I accomplished was just getting used to the code that I had written, which is going to be huge in the future. Next week, I'm attempting to recreate the entirety of the original Super Mario Bros., which is either going to be impressive or catastrophic. Probably both. So, subscribe?